everyone, this is Jesse coming at you with a little Q&A session here on YouTube. A couple days ago I posted a little bulletin asking anyone if they had any questions to go ahead and post them on my YouTube channel and I would answer them for you. You can ask me whatever you want. So if you have any questions, just go to my YouTube channel, post a question there, and I will get to it. So the very first person that asked me a couple of questions was the Sideswipe 96, so I'll be answering their questions today. So he says, I heard, or he or she says, I heard you were doing a Q&A thing, so what are your top 10 Transformers from any line, any faction? Well, this is a sort of hard question. There's some that will always remain in my top 10 no matter what. And again, those won't change because of that. But there's some that if you ask me a couple days from now, I might change my mind on. But the very top of the list that's been there ever since this toy first came out is Black Convoy from Car Robots. You got to realize at the time when Car Robots came out, that's when I first started to become a collector. I quit being the year 2000, Car Robots / Transformers 2000 came out in the year 2000. That was the year I graduated high school. Didn't play with toys then, but because of the rise of the internet at that particular point, and with the fact that online toy stores were becoming more and more popular, Big Bad Toy Store, for example, that's right around the time they really started to get super popular. Was because of, I would say, probably because of the Car Robots toy line, because they were able to bring in imported toys to the masses here in the United States and actually provide an outlet to purchase these particular toys. Black Convoy was one of the figures that, if I remember back correctly, there was all sorts of online speculation about the toy. There were lots of people that were really interested in that particular toy. There were pictures of it making the rounds online. It just looked phenomenal, and I absolutely love it. How can you not love an Evil Prime? So and the fact that it's made out of a mold that sort of introduces a lot of things that toys now we sort of take for granted like the ball joints, lots of posability. It took a really great mold that originally had a shitty color scheme and applied a super badass color scheme to it and a really great backstory, and it provided us with one of the best Transformer toys that we've ever gotten. So still at my top of my list, and it'll probably remain there for quite some time. Next on my list, and for the rest of these, they're not really in any particular order. Black Convoy is really the only one I want to say is for sure at the very top, but the rest of these, they're not really in any particular order. The next one I have on my list here is Super Fire Convoy, also from Car Robots. Again, this is around that same time period. We saw pictures float around on the internet about it. This is when the internet fandom got really big, and there was just all sorts of hype and speculation about the toy. And as an early collector at that point, it was a phenomenal looking figure, and I just had to get my hands on it. I don't remember if I actually ordered that one online or not. I know there was a toy store in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I believe they're still there, WYSIWYG. I haven't been there in quite some time, but I believe they're still there. And they were getting imports, and they were like, I think they were like an hour, just over an hour from my house at that time. And I would go there and actually purchase some of the Car Robot figures. So, and I believe I actually did purchase this one at that particular store. That was the very first Japanese toy, or import, I'll say import toy, that I had ever purchased. And I was completely blown away by it. That figure is phenomenal. Articulation out the ass. The fact that you have a great smaller Prime that you can combine with the rest of the truck pieces to get a much larger Prime. Fantastic figure. Absolutely love it. I'm really glad that Hasbro decided to bring the Car Robots toy line to the United States as Robots in Disguise, because I know that it introduced those particular molds and toys to a lot of people that normally wouldn't have been able to purchase those. So I think that was a great move by Hasbro's part. Next on my list here, this is also from Car Robots / Robots in Disguise, and that's Skybite. Skybite, I believe, is Cyber Shark. Is that what it's called? It's from Beast Wars. The mold was okay, but the color scheme or the paint scheme on it was fucking atrocious, absolutely terrible. So they took it and they put this elaborate paint scheme on it, which still to this day, I don't know that we've had a figure that's had as great of a paint job as what Skybite had. And they made it a fantastic looking figure. And the transformation in that particular figure, not all that well, kind of a pain in the ass from what I recall. My figure's long packed away, but from what I recall, it's kind of a pain, but it looks phenomenal. The shark mode, absolutely fantastic. You can't go wrong. If you don't own that figure, you can't go wrong by picking it up. So next on my list here, it falls under the classics line, but it also sort of falls under the fan creations as well. Sorry while I scratch my nose. And that is the Ultra Magnus Classics figure, but combined with the City Commander armor. I've never purchased, well, I won't say never. The only other third-party fan-created sort of product that I've purchased for Transformers was the Unicron stand, which that was really just, I mean, didn't really add anything to the toy, just allowed the Unicron, the Armada Unicron, to be displayed in planet mode. But this is the very first piece of fan-created product that I've ever purchased that actually added something to the toy. And boy, does it add something to the toy, because it drastically improves that figure. And in fact, it's one of the only toys I still have out on display. It's right here on my desk next to me. So fantastic figure. And that figure was pretty hard to come by once the City Commander armor hit, because the Ultra Magnus here in the United States was sold in a 2-pack, which I believe was only a Target exclusive. So if you don't own that figure or the City Commander armor, highly recommend tracking it down, because it's phenomenal. The next two figures on my list here, they're both from G1. I'm going to say Megatron and Optimus Prime. Megatron because he's got a badass alternate mode, the fact that he looks like a realistic gun, and the fact that Hasbro can't release that anymore because of that reason. Absolutely love it. His robot mode's kind of shit, but that gun mode looks great. G1 Optimus Prime, it's the very first Optimus Prime. I love Optimus Prime, so you can't go wrong with that one. Next on my list here is Smokescreen from the Alternators toy line. Why Smokescreen out of all the other ones? Smokescreen was the first, and I think it was a really great figure, to be honest with you. The blue on it was kind of dull just because of the plastic they used, but the paint applications that were on the figure, they looked good. It looked like a rally racer car, and to me, it was a great figure. Lots of articulation, great way to kick off the line, and it's without a doubt one of my favorites from the Alternators. So, and the last three here on my list are all from G1. So the first one here is Jetfire. Jetfire is a great figure for a couple of reasons. One, it's a Macross figure, so right there, I'm a huge fan of Robotech, and Robotech is just a redub of Macross, so I love it because of that reason. And it just looks sort of menacing in the robot mode. It doesn't really come off as looking Autobot-ish, aside from the paint scheme. I mean, he's got like a red eye visor, so he looks a little bit evil and menacing. But I love the figure. It looks great, especially if you have all the armor pieces and the booster rockets. Unfortunately, I don't for my figure. But it's a great looking figure, especially for a display piece. And the jet mode, it's great too. So it's got two good modes, and it looks good in my opinion. Next up here on my list is Devastator. Okay, so this is really 6 figures, but I love the combined version of the figure, or of these figures, and it just looks phenomenal. It's, in my opinion, one of the best combiner groups that we've ever gotten. It uses very little connector pieces. If you look at the later G1 combiners, they all had essentially they all had pegs for like or pieces for like the feet, and they all had I believe they all had a central piece that you connected various pieces to. and things like that. With Devastator, the figures themselves were the feet, and really the only connector piece that you had was the piece that connected the legs to the torso. Everything else essentially used the robot pieces to actually form Devastator, which is great. In my opinion, is the best looking combiner from G1, and it's definitely one of the best combiners that we've ever gotten. So, and lastly here on my list, and this is one that I could take it or leave it, and you ask me a couple days from now, I'll probably change my mind, and that's Grimlock from G1. Why Grimlock? I think it's probably the best looking of the G1 Dinobots. I purchased that particular figure off from my cousin, and I recall getting lots of play value with it, simply due to the fact that as a kid growing up, I absolutely loved dinosaurs. So that was definitely one that I played with quite often. So that's my top 10 list. Again, like I said, ask me a couple days from now, I could change my opinion on some of these. Some of them that will remain there, however: Black Convoy, Super Fire Convoy, the Ultra Magnus Classics, G1, Prime and Megatron, and the Devastator for sure. But the other ones, could take them or leave them, depending on the particular day that you ask me. So, and the second part of the question here was, what do you think of Dark of the Moon? Well, maybe you hadn't seen the video yet, but I actually published a video on my thoughts of Dark of the Moon. I'm actually discussing that with Spada, and I'll go ahead and post the link here in the video. So if you happen to miss that, you can go ahead and check that out as well. Alright, so that's it for the Sideswipe 96's questions. So if you have any questions you want me to answer, like I said, go ahead and post them in my YouTube channel, and I will get to them in a future video. So until next time, this is Jesse, signing off.
I'm not your enemy. I'm not your